Hi, so in this video I'd like to go through the if-else statement. Now you may notice that this is a recording that I am playing to you, and I am doing a voiceover right now. The original recording was recorded in class. The computer I was using was very loud and the fan noise was irritating actually. So I decided to keep this on mute. Click this mute and just narrate this to you and just tell you exactly what I was doing. And there'll be parts that I will skip that may not be relevant, or at least as you're in class is a bit different. But anyway, so if-else statements. So I want to go through the keywords if versus else-if versus else. They're all different, but they all work together to create your if-else statement. And I'll show you the syntax on how to write the if-else statement in visualbasics.net. And I also want to show you kind of the three ways I like to use them, where I use one big if-else statement with a lot of ifs and if-elses, a lot of if-elses, where I use separate if-else statements to do other jobs, or whether I nest them or put if-else statements within if-else statements, right? So, so that's what I want to go through. Let's just scroll through the video, and let's go to a point where I start a new project, which is about here. Yep, so over here. I'll just play that. So we're going to create a new Visual Basics Windows Form app. Let's play that. And we're going to call it using if-else. Now, just a reminder, try not to put spaces in your project names. And at this point in time, I'm using Pascal casing, where the first letter of every word is capitalized and no spaces. All right, so that's kind of the naming convention I will be using throughout the series. Dependingly, I will use Pascal casing for generally, public things that are public in the public domain, and for private, the first letter I probably will make not lowercase. Anyway, so this is our project, and what I'll do is I'll set up the form so that we have a few buttons that we can test. So what I do here is I'll put in a text box, and I'll put in a button, and this button will be the example where we show you, or rather I show you how to, what a single if-else statement is, which is mainly the if-else statement. So this is the one that will showcase all of what an if-else statement is, and the other ways, the other parts of the video show you, different ways you can use this single if-else statement. You can use multiple, or you can put them inside each other. Right. Okay, so I named the button there btn. I would say single if-else or something like that, I assume. Yep, single. So if-else. Single, yep, that's what I do. And we can pretty much go to the next video. So we'll double click onto the button, and then we're going to program it. So the issue is during class I forgot to record. So we pretty much got to this point before I started recording. So I can just explain to you what this is. So this is what I wrote inside this button here. Right, this is what I wrote, and I put dim age as something from the text box, and I labeled this text box txt number. Right, I labeled that. So what I'm doing is I'm running a bit of a check your age app, where if your age of less than 16, it shows a message 16 and under, no license. If the age is greater than or equal to 16, or less than or equal to 17, so in between 16 and 17, you're a learner. If your age is above 18 and less than 21, but not equal to 21, which is basically, incorporates 18, it includes 18, but it doesn't include 21, so it goes up to 20, then you're on probationary. If you're 21 and above, you've got full license. So this is kind of apparently what my students told me in Australia, how it's working these days. That you got your no license learners, probationary, and then full license. And anything not within this range is a invalid. It's input invalid. Now the key to an if-else statement is, the way it works is, it will do the first check, and if it passes the first check, it will do whatever is inside, and all of these are skipped. So the key to an if-else statement, or one single big if-else statement, is if it passes, anyone that passes, it will skip the rest. So if this failed, it will look at that one and then skip the rest. And if this one failed, this one passed, it will do that and then skip the rest. So understand that these aren't checked. All of them aren't checked. Only the first, the last one that's checked is the one that passed. All right, so that's what you need to take away from a big if-else statement. And the first if is usually a one if there, and then every other preceding check will be a else if, else if, else if. Now you can have a last check, which is like a default check, which is else. It doesn't have a condition here. So all of these has conditions here. And the symbols you use is less than or greater than. And you put the less than and greater than before the equals. That's kind of the way it works. You can't put the equals before that. It won't work there. You'll get a syntax error, right? And then at the end, you put an end if. And the first if has, all of them have thens. And you can check two ranges. You go range greater than or equal to 16 and age less than or equal to 17. So so you can have like, you can also put ors in there, you know, greater than or equal to 16 or 17. So that's some of the things that you can do with your single if. Let's just scroll through, see what else I do. All right, so that concludes the single if-else statement. So that's one big if-else statement. So what I'll do now is I put in another button, and I want to demonstrate in this button like separate if-else statements. So basically using multiple if-else statements together. So the last one was a single if-else statement. It's just a single one. All right, it's not separated. That basically means it will check, and if it passes, it will skip the rest. So the rest is skipped. In a separated if-else statement, you can set it in a way where things aren't skipped. That's kind of the advantages of separating ifs, and I'll show you here. And sometimes you need to use a separate ifs because you want everything to be checked, right? You don't want things to be skipped. If you want things to be skipped, you use an else if. Else if allows skipping. Ifs, you're forced to do it, you know, if they're separated. So you can see there I put in a button and I called it else, separate else if, and I name it. Right, so, well, actually I didn't name the button, but anyway, it doesn't matter. So this is the second example here. Okay, let's moving on. So what I do is I grab the code from the single if else statement and I slap into this one. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all the else's and put an end if. So when I do that, it will errors out. But I deleted the else here. You notice I deleted the else here and I put that in just so that it will work. And then I put an end if at the end of this one. So I'm basically separating my big if else statement. I've just separated. The first one I've separated. I'm separating the second one. And the key to separation here is now it doesn't skip. Every single one of these ifs will be checked. So even if, whether this pass or fails, right? Whether it pass or fails, the next one will be checked as well. Whether this pass or fails, this one will be checked as well. Whether this one passes or fails, the next one's going to be checked. So every time it starts with an if, they're all going to be checked. So it doesn't skip like the other one, right? The first one with the else if the previous one passed, it skips the next, all of the next ones. And you don't really have a default here, but you can add a default. So just bear in mind that every single one of these little ifs are all its own if statement. I can put an else if on any one of these four, and I can put an else on any one of these four, right? So this is just a demonstration that you can separate your ifs if you want things to be checked definitely. Moving on, let's see what else I do. So again, and then now I demonstrate that because they're all separate if statements, I can put else's and else if in each one of these. So really they're just a whole bunch of single if else statements that I'm slapping next to each other, one after another. And that's basically a way you could use if else statement. You can just slap them one after another, or you can just use one big one. Depends on your context, depends on your application. So over here I put an else on things. So the way this one works is, if this is true, this will be skipped. If this is false, this will be done, and if that's false, it'll move on to that. And whether this one passes or this one fails, it doesn't really matter. This will definitely be checked again. All right, and then this will definitely be checked. So definitely these checks will not be skipped. This one could be skipped. Any of the else's could be skipped. Let's see what else I do. And that's pretty much it for that one. So in this last example, I demonstrate how we could do nested ifs. What nested means is you put an if statement within an if statement. Right. So what I do here is I put a button. I call it nested if else, right? Or else if else if, and then else if, right? I'll name the button this time around nested. Right, if else nested, and let's have a look at this one. Let's move on a little bit. Okay, so let's see how I write this one. So I write if. Oh yeah, I need to put in the dim age as integer, getting it from the text box. So I slap it in there, and then here it is. So I go if age is greater than 21. I show a message. Full license, because you're above 21. You definitely got full license. At 21, you also should be getting a full license, but I didn't put an equals there, but it's okay. And then you can see here, after this, I straight away put another if statement inside this if statement. So I basically put I put an else. So this is one if statement, and then I put in an if statement within the else of this if statement. So this is living inside this. Now let's just skip through a little bit. Let's have a look at the code. Okay, let's keep going there. All right, so I'm just going to pause here. All right, so before we move on to this nested if, here's the catch with nested ifs. If this passes and then it prints that off, this is skipped. So therefore, it never does this check. It never does any of these checks. So in some ways, you've blocked yourself out of everything. Maybe that's what you want. You don't want to do certain checks unless certain things pass, right? So I'll put another else if here. I'll put another if in this else. And if you're greater than 16, what do I write here? Learner, whatever. I'm just writing, whatever. And then again, I put another message here. So this is one single if else statement here. That's inside this if else statement. That's inside this if else statement. And just be careful, it's in the else part of the if else statement. And then where's my last if, end if? There it is.